الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين. أما بعد, Allah SWT advises in His glorious book in Surah At-Tawbah, chapter 9 in verse 103. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم وتزكيهم بها وصل عليهم إن صلاتك سكن لهم والله سميع عليم. Take, O Muhammad ﷺ, from their wealth a charity by which you purify them and cause them increase, and invoke Allah's blessings upon them. Indeed, your invocations are reassurance for them, and Allah is hearing and knowing. Now we all know that Zakat, and this is what the verse is talking about. It's talking about Zakat. Zakat is compulsory on every Muslim who meets the criteria that you have an income and so on and so forth. So it's an obligatory thing that we have to do, and it's not optional. So there are several points in this verse that I want to just bring up. The first point is zakat is taken, not given. Khudh, take. It's an order from Allah to the Prophet to take from the Muslims' money as zakat. And the verse applies to all the people in charge in a Muslim government after that. So the first point is zakat is taken, not given. If it was left for everyone to decide, well, should I give, should I not give, how much, that is not a model to build an economy upon. When you have a government, you have to have income for public works, for things of interest for everyone. So no government is going to be, is going to come into existence without having some kind of an income to support it. So zakat is, in an Islamic environment, is linked to an economic strategy that is implemented by the people in charge, by the Muslim rulers in charge. So that's part one. So point two is Allah used amwalihim in the plural form, their wealth, not mal. It's amwal. So in the plural form means, take from their, wealth. And mal is anything that has value. You shouldn't think of it as money. Anything that can be bought and sold is covered under the term mal. So it could be money, gold, silver, merchandise, crop, if you're a businessman, your inventory, all of that stuff is part of mal. So zakat is due on it and can be paid from it. So anything that generates income falls under this term mal. The third point is, the verse is talking about zakat, but the verse says sadaqah. Allah says, He termed it sadaqah, charity. Now sadaqah, if you think of the English word charity, it doesn't really convey that meaning. In Arabic, sadaqah is from tasdeeq, from confirming. So a believer does many activities that doesn't cost anything. Does it cost you anything to make wudu and pray or fast it doesn't cost you anything. You do it and it doesn't cost you anything. But there are other activities like paying zakat where you're actually putting an effort. You spend the time earning money and now you have to spend it. And your nature says, I want to gather, I don't want to pay. That's how human nature is. So when Allah says, you pay it, and you're going against your nature, and your nature says, don't spend, keep it. But Allah says, spend it, and you go against your nature, that's how you prove to Allah, tasdeeq al-iman, that yes, I am a mu'min, I will follow you, O Allah. So paying it, the act of paying it, confirms your faith in Allah and the obedience to His orders to pay from your wealth as zakat. So that's why it was termed sadaqah in this verse, but it's talking about zakat. If you give a poor person a rock, What is it to you? What does that mean to you? It means nothing. You just picked something of no value and gave it to somebody. But when you open your wallet and you take $100 and you give it to someone, that has a different meaning. So it's the act of giving is different when something has a value. So when a Muslim gives, that's when he rises in status with Allah. And he confirms his obedience to Allah. And that's why it was termed sadaqah in this verse. The fourth point is giving zakat has a purifying effect. تطهرهم. خذ من أموالهم. It says تطهرهم. It purifies the wealthy from stinginess. Stinginess is like cancer. It's a spiritual cancer. It's the equivalent of having cancer. It's a very destructive disease when all you want is to hoard and not spend and earn it at any expense. That's a disease. But by giving from it, it purifies the wealthy person from stinginess. It also purifies the needy from hatred and bitterness, that when he sees other people that have things and they don't have anything, they will feel bitter about it, that why do you have and I don't? But when they see the wealthy giving them from their wealth, that purifies the needy person from these ill feelings towards others. And they know that the wealthy didn't forget about them. The society is not ignoring them. They have a right in people's wealth. And it also purifies the wealth from the right of others. Because just because you have it in your bank account, Allah says there is a portion of it, and you can think of it as 2.5% or more, but 2.5%, that portion of it does not belong to you. It belongs to others. And if you don't spend it, you're not purifying the rest of your wealth. So by spending from it, it purifies the wealth as well. The fifth point is giving zakat leads to increase, to zakkihim. Now, if you think about it, if you're a non-believers, they're very materialistic. They debits and credits, that's all they see. They see that giving, you're losing money. Getting, you're gaining money. That's not how it is in the Islamic faith. In Islamic faith, when you give, you get more in return. Allah will make sure of it. So that principle of barakah, the principle of giving and many will come back to you, that only is for a believer. So when the wealthy gives from his wealth, their status increases in the community. Not to boast, but that's in effect that he's helping others, and that will be appreciated and the status will go up. So that, to zakkihim, for a wealthy person, that happens. And also for the needy person, they feel appreciated that they were not forgotten in a society, that people are thinking of them and helping them, so their feelings increase, their status increase, in a society. And the wealth also increases. It increases in two different ways. One way is the mechanical way. You give the money to the poor spends it in the economy. The wealthy is going to get that money back because now they're selling now they're giving money to somebody, and that somebody going to go in and buy things that stimulates the economy, and they end up making more money. That's one way. The other way is Allah Ta'ala protects the giver's wealth from destruction. And He makes it grow in ways we cannot even understand. So that's the zakah, the tazkiyah of, happens at many levels. So the Imam al-Shafi'i has an opinion on the zakat, that his opinion is that paying zakat should provide a solution. You could give a small amount to 100 people, but does that help? It helps them for maybe a day. you can take that, you can give somebody something enough for 2-3 days, maybe a week. That does not solve a problem. That, it gives them something in the immediate. So in his opinion is when zakat is given out, it needs to provide a solution. It needs to provide support for the needy for at least a year, if not a lifetime. Now, how does that happen? When the zakat is given, if somebody is able-bodied, maybe buy them a car and they can use that as a taxi to get income and support themselves for the rest of their life. That's a better use of zakat instead of just giving a little bit to many people. You focus the act of giving to solve a problem. Now, that's an opinion, and I like that opinion. And so when we give our zakat, we should keep that in mind, that don't spread it too thin where nobody's really, it's not making an impact on, on anyone. See if you can focus it, especially if you have maybe a relative who's needy, you help them get an education, you help them, get something to support themselves. That is a great way to dispense the zakat. Now, in this country, nobody's going to force you to pay zakat. Nobody's going to come knock on your door and say, you have 2.5%, it's due, like they do with taxes. Taxes you cannot escape from. But for zakat, there is no Muslim ruler, there is no system that is going to come and take it from you. It's up to every single one of us to make sure that it is dispensed. And doing it during Ramadan is a great way, because now you don't have to worry about when is it due. If you train it to always pay it in Ramadan, you get the benefit, you get the the reward. So that is how we should do it, but it has to be paid. If nobody's coming and asking you to pay it, that doesn't mean you don't have to pay it. Allah is expecting you to purify yourself and purify your wealth. And if you refuse to pay it, you're putting yourself in a very dangerous position. So there are many, we are lucky in this country as well that we have many Muslim organizations. We all work, we're all busy. We don't have time to go and seek people out. There are organizations that specialize in that. They know where the needy are. They know where the projects that make a difference are, whether it's drilling a well in India or providing goats in Africa for needy families, whatever it is. They do the homework. All you have to do is seek them out, support them, and they would take care of dispensing that zakat. So that is a great blessing, for us. I will finish with something called the identity primary worship, ibadat al-hawiyya. We know there are many acts of worship, ibadat. You have salah, you have zakat, you have saum, you have hajj. These are obligatory acts of worship. But there are other acts of worship that come in importance after them that has to do with who you are. Who are you? What is your identity? What is your place in society? Depending on that answer, you have an act of worship that comes primary after the obligatory acts of worship. If you are a poor person, your primary act of worship after the obligatory, of course, I'm talking about after the obligatory ones. Your primary act, ibadat al-hawiyya, for a poor person is to be patient. You have to be patient with what Allah gave you and not resort to other, to stealing or to hurting others to try to get out of that poverty. You have to go through the channels. So your primary act of worship is patience. If you're a wealthy person, your primary act of worship is spending. If you are a businessman, your primary act of worship is honesty and integrity in dispensing your job. If you are a powerful person, Your primary act of worship is making sure that justice is served, that you protect people. You know, if you're, let's say you're a lawyer, ibadah, when a believer does anything in this life, if you do it with the right intention to please Allah, it's a ibadah. So a lawyer who protects innocent people from accusations and things like that, that's your ibadah, because that's your position. If you're a scholar, your primary act of worship is to dispense knowledge and not worry about what other people may say. You have to know who you are to know what you're expected to do, because Allah will hold you responsible to it. So if we fail in our primary responsibility in this life, then the society will suffer and evil will spread. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم فاستغفروه إنه الغفور الرحيم.